Welcome to a new video by Gamers Essential. The very best tips, tricks, guides, and more right at your fingertips. On Wednesday, August 13th, Blizzard announced that patch 6.2.2, World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, will be featuring several updates, bug fixes, and more. While Blizzard did not announce when the new patch will go live, it might just be worth downloading that PTR client and having a go at exploring Draenor from the sky. That's right, 6.2.2 will have flying in Draenor. This new addition could potentially have to do with the new expansion, World of Warcraft Legion, which was announced during GameCon 2015 last week. Flying has been enabled on Draenor for characters that have attained the account-wide achievement Draenor Pathfinder. To help facilitate testing of this feature, accounts that have not yet obtained the achievement will be able to purchase a manual of rapid pathfinding from Flastakar and their garrisons on the PTR. Please note, there will still be areas or pockets on Draenor where flying has not yet been fully implemented. These areas will be tracked and listed in a forum thread entitled Flight in Draenor, Reported Bugs Thread on the PTR discussion forum. Also in development is the PvP Mercenary mode. Players will be able to act as a mercenary for the opposing faction in PvP whenever your faction is experiencing a long wait time to get into Ashran or unrated battle. Agents of the enemy faction will appear in your base in Ashran, Storm Shield for the Alliance and Warspear for the Horde, and allow you to enter Ashran or Battlegrounds disguised as an enemy player and actually fight as the opposite faction. While competing as a mercenary, players will automatically have their race changed into one appropriate for the opposing faction. Players will still be able to earn all the same rewards as winning or losing as their original faction, with the exception of faction-specific achievements. Now, this feature is still in development and is not available initially on the PTR. Mercenary mode will be enabled later. Also announced was a PvP, Ashran now has a deserter mechanic. Upon entering, players receive a 10-minute buff called Ashran Tour of Duty. If the player leaves an Ashran match before this buff expires, a 15-minute debuff called Recreant, which prevents re-entry into Ashran matches. Additions to the raids and dungeons, the new time-walking rewards. Players will now receive a time-warped badge when they complete a time-walking dungeon. These badges can be redeemed at new vendors that will appear during a time-walking bonus event. The new vendors will sell new toys, mounts, in addition to gear that scales up to the character's level at the time of purchase. In time-walking loot changes, Wrath of the Lich King dungeon bosses now have a chance to drop a frozen orb as personal loot while time-walking. Burning Crusade dungeon bosses now have a chance to drop Primal Nether as a personal loot while time-walking. And additionally, all time-walking dungeon bosses that had a chance to drop profession patterns or recipes now have a chance to drop them again if the player has the relevant profession and has not learned it yet. Scotty the Ruthless in Uthgard Pinnacle now has a very slight chance to drop Reigns of the Blue Protodrake as personal loot while time-walking. Loken in Halls of Lightning now has a chance to drop a music roll while time-walking. Fix an issue where Tyrant Vahari could not be clicked on if there is an Ancient Enforcer, Ancient Harbinger, or Ancient Sovereign near her. Now with quests, the legendary Ring quest line, new weekly quests have been added to help players catch up in earlier stages of the legendary Ring quest line for Highmaul and Blackrock Foundry. There have been some changes with zones, creatures, and NPCs. The Tanan Jungle Steel Snout should now be correctly immune to being trapped by the deadly Iron Trap. Ashran, the interior of the armory of Storm Shield, should now be correctly furnished, removing a stack of objects floating outside the armory at Storm Shield. Frostfire Ridge, cartographers have been notified and corrected a spelling error on the world map. Shadowmoon Valley, Weaponsmith Call, should now be able to repair the player's equipment properly. And Darkmoon Island, the Darkmoon Rabbit, should now correctly respect loot rules. Also a change for collections. For mounts, the maximum size of a mount is now capped at 150% of the base size for the cosmetic effects, which means you no longer have a Tauren who's the size of Orgrimmar on top of the mailbox. There have been several changes for items as well. Tooltips for items that have been empowered or created by Baleful tokens now have a Baleful or a Empowered tag. Baleful trinkets should now always create an item that has bonus armor for tanking loot specializations and spirit for healing loot specializations. The Brazier of the Awakening should no longer despawn at the end of a raid encounter without resurrecting a party or raid member. Dekorhan's Tusk and Tectalon's Talon are now bound to the account rather than the Battle.net account. Medallion of the Legion is now only usable on Draenor. Reigns of the Thundering Ruby Cloud Serpent no longer has a reputation requirement with the August Celestials to learn. And while Gladiator's Insignia of Dominance should now provide the correct amount of bonus intellect when its effect is triggered. There have also been a few garrison changes. The Follower's Palace, the Apex Predator trait, should now correctly counter aberrations and furies on garrison missions. Shipyard and naval missions. Ship equipment items now have naval equipment in the item tooltip, enabling it to be searched through the bag using the search UI. Fiction issue where completing a naval mission at the naval command table did not cause the garrison report icon to stop blinking. And lastly, achievements. Naval Mechanics credit for obtaining equipment blueprint, the Blast Furnace, should now be tracked properly, and players should now be able to complete this achievement. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video and like to see more, remember to thumbs up and subscribe.
Game over.